Hello and welcome to episode 1286 of The Sleeper in the Bus. No, 1289. God, I totally botched it. It's April 26th. I'm your host, Paul Sporer. Oh, God, it's way too early. You're the one, Justin Mason, my co-host here. That is, it's 6:34. You should be the one fumbling over everything.
And I was up till 1:30.
Yeah. I went to bed at a normal time and I've been up for 2 hours. I'm in the groove here and I'm botching everything. But how you doing this morning?
I'm doing all right. I'm still here, which means I did not get drafted in the NFL draft last night. So
Yeah, it was just day one though.
yeah, that's true. I mean, I'm probably more of a late round pick anyways. I'll probably go in the Saturdays, portion of
It
things.
is just the first round, right?
Yesterday was, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Today's
Didn't
rounds 2 and 3.
didn't it used to be first round and second round for a while? I know it hasn't
It,
been for some time, but it used
it
to be,
used
no?
used to be you'd get like the first, I think, 4 rounds
Okay, even more
on
on that
on
first day.
Saturday, and then the last 3 rounds. I think that's what, or maybe it was the first 3 rounds, the last 4 rounds.
Things have changed
Um,
quite a bit.
well, yeah, I mean it's the NFL in general just
I
stretching it
know.
out.
I know. It's nauseating. And
Like
listen,
Christmas next year, there's supposed to be like 5 different days there are games on for the NFL because
Jesus.
it's going to be like
I
a
thought
Saturday, Sunday, Monday,
I thought
Christmas,
they were
and
always
then
cool about seeding Christmas to basketball. I thought
not
basketball kind of
anymore.
owned Christmas. Well, that's kind of crappy. And NFL has Thanksgiving, and
Hmm.
basketball to me I associate with Christmas. But anyway, it is episode 1289. It is April 26th. Whatever the hell I said at the beginning was all over the map. I am joined by Justin Mason. I myself am Paul Sporer, and we're going to talk some two-start pitchers as we are wont to do on Fridays. You also write an article about it, so you're always kind of pre-wired on where you're at with things. So that makes it easy for us to come in and kind of talk about these. As always, if there's a superstar that we don't mention, it's because we don't need to. We don't need to tell you to start Grayson Rodriguez twice next week.
I would.
We don't need to tell you what? Did you say you wouldn't? Hello?
No,
Did you
I
lose me?
said I would. Sorry, yeah, I lost you
Oh,
for a
okay.
brief
Sorry,
minute.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think right when you said that, you lost me, and so I created this whole like, what the hell? Yeah, like Max Fried, Grace Rodriguez, you get it. Do the same spiel every week, but like those guys aren't going to be on there. Sometimes we put kind of a star level name if we want to do a little check in with them. If something's going on and we're like, hey, where are we at with this guy? We might have them on. I don't think there's anybody like that this week. I think it's all pretty straightforward. There's some guys obviously that we're only talking about for the shallow leagues, and they're kind of obvious for deep leagues. I think somebody like maybe a Trevor Rogers, pretty easy in the deep leagues. We want to make sure that we're in on him in shallow leagues, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. There's
Y'all
only
get
like
it.
one name on here where I go, I'm starting him for sure. Like, can't believe you even put him on this list.
I probably am too, but I just like to check in. And don't forget, range of leagues, right? Deep to shallow. So let's start at the top. Tommy Henry. We do go Arizona to Washington. Tommy Henry, two at home. That's the good thing I can say about it. But when I tell you the teams, probably not. Dodgers and Padres. I think it's a pretty easy no. But
Yeah, not a chance. Not a
okay,
chance. No. Yeah,
let's just
no.
move on then. We do
Yeah.
not need to overly spend time on guys that we're not even going to make a slight case for. Yeah, Tommy Henry. I'm not sure that Washington, Oakland would necessarily get me on board, let alone Dodgers, Padres. Dean Kramer, Yankees at Cincy. So an intriguing pitcher that we've had some positive things to say about over the course of this um, winter into spring. But this is a hell of a two-step. What are you doing with Dean Kramer? Where you been at on him so far this year through 5 starts? And what are you doing here with Yankees at Cincy?
Well, I can start with the latter half, which is I'm probably not starting him unless I'm completely desperate.
Okay.
Like, I mean, this is a guy with a homer problem, and you're going up against the Yankees who hit bombs left and right, and then you're in Cincinnati where you could hit bombs left and right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, uh, I think this would be a desperation play, if anything. So, like when I
Agreed.
finished writing up my article today, like he's going to be in that second to last tier of like,
Hail Mary
how
type
lucky,
stuff.
yeah, how lucky do you feel right now?
Mm-hmm.
Because I he pitched well against the Angels, and I watched that whole start, and he still gave up a bomb at the end to Trout. So, like,
2.0 homer 9 for Dean Kramer.
yeah, like everything else is looking good, but he fills up the zone and he gives up home runs. So,
Yep.
Yeah, I prefer him as kind of a home streamer for the most part. So there's 15 team leagues where you're kind of desperate for, a starting pitcher. I get it, but
Or chasing wins, being part of Baltimore.
Yeah.
I don't mind chasing wins here with Dean Kramer, but you could take some ratio damage. And it's right there in the numbers. 4.61 ERA, 106 whip. So you might get a nice whip, but he can bludgeon your ERA. You're hoping to snake a dub. I will tell you, Dean Kramer's 1-2 in 5 starts, though, too. So it hasn't really been working for him, but maybe you could. I'm staying away, too, except for the scenarios that you're talking about where I'm already chucking Hail Marys.
Yeah.
Cooper Criswell has been in between that sort of follower and, short starter, meaning it's more like 4 innings or fewer. Had some pretty decent results, 2.38 ERA, 1.15 whip, but only a 10% strikeout minus walk. I doubt you're doing it, but it's the Giants and at Minnesota, and I'm just curious if there's been anything from Cooper Criswell that's kind of encouraged you. He did go a traditional start last time out in Cleveland and threw 5 scoreless against a team that's playing very well. So that's why I still put him on here, because in addition to not putting on the studs, we also don't usually put on the guys that are so super obvious. No, although I did put Tommy Henry on. But I'm just curious, has Cooper Criswell done anything to garner any attention from you? And would you be interested in Giants at Minnesota?
I mean, he's pitched fairly well, but
Mhm.
I just don't trust that he's going to go deep enough in the game to qualify for win. And then he also doesn't get strikeouts. So,
Yeah.
When you eliminate at least 2 of the 4 categories from a starting pitcher, I'm not usually pretty interested.
It's pretty difficult to
Yeah.
get super psyched when you're not doing the things that we want. And so, yeah, with Cooper Criswell, that's where I come out with it. I can't really get there based on the lack of skills. 10% strikeout minus walk is really putrid. Couple Cubs, both intriguing in their own level. Jameson Taillon and Javier Assad both getting at the Mets and home to Milwaukee. Let's start with Taillon. He's kind of one of those deep league stalwart types that you just kind of, set it and forget it when you're trusting him. He's just back. These are going to be his second and third starts, or third and fourth? Third and fourth starts. 14% strikeout minus walk, 1.69 ERA, 1.13 whip through the first 2 starts. Is Jameson Taillon back in your trust tree here as far as deeper leagues go? Where you at on him?
Yeah, I mean, he's looked really good since returning from the IL, and I was kind of a fan of his. I'm really kind of glad to get him back for some of my gladiators and DCs where I drafted him early, and then of course he got hurt. I mean, health is always an issue with Jameson Taillon, but that's a long-term problem, not a short-term problem. So, this isn't like the hardest of 2 steps with at New York, which is a good park, and then home versus Milwaukee. But it's also one that if you had asked me right at the beginning of the season, I'd have been like, "Oh, I love this 2-step. Milwaukee isn't great, and the Mets are
And the Mets were
great.
terrible to start the year.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, they've been playing way better.
So it's a little bit more difficult. I think I'm still using this in 15s and some 12s, but it's not quite the easy kind of like auto 2-start that it might have seemed at the beginning of the season.
That's exactly where I come out. I'm using Jameson Taillon here, but it is a little bit sketchy. I understand. I'm going in eyes wide open, as I like to say, which I know that this could go south on me, but I'm going to go ahead and take the shot with Jameson Taillon. What about Javier Assad? A little bit more finesse to his game than, well, actually maybe not more finesse to his game than Taillon. Kind of similar, where they don't get a ton of Ks, but they kind of get the job done. He just doesn't have the track record. Has Javier Assad struck your fancy at all to the point where you would be using him in those same 15s and some 12s the way you are with Taillon?
It's interesting because you kind of look at the surface stats and you go, "Hey, he's kind of striking guys out all of a sudden, and getting out of jams fairly easily." And but then you look at the underlying numbers and you go, "Oh, I don't really buy these strikeouts."
7% swinging strike rate.
Yeah, and a 91% zone contact. So like when guys swing in the zone, they're making contact 91% of the time. So I do think that like if you're expecting like this is a step forward for Assad in terms of strikeouts, like that's just not the case. Like that, this is going to regress hard back. That being said, like he does do a really good job of inducing weak contact, letting the defense, which is really good behind him, kind of pick him up. So like, I don't mind using him, especially in 15 team leagues. I think 10s and 12s you could probably do better though.
Yep, I think that's a scenario where I agree. Deeper leagues, Javier Assad, despite the fact that we don't believe in this 25% K rate, I still see some value to running this. Shallow leagues, no. And again, there's a wide range of outcomes here where you could see a lot of the regression that he will eventually get on this two ERA and one WHIP, 2.00 and 1.00 flat there. Some nice symmetry with the ERA and WHIP for Javier Assad. So solid pitcher. Be careful, but deeper leagues, I totally get it. Nick Lodolo is probably one of those ones that not sure he needs to be on here. Again, I've said this with Hunter Green. I think if you've signed up for the ride, you got to ride it. And if you can't start a two-step with Lodolo, it's like, well, what are you doing then? But it's at San Diego, home to Baltimore. Again, if I have him, I am running with it despite my nerves starting him or Green, to be honest. But where are you at on Lodolo? 3 starts in, it's been pretty good. 2.12 ERA, 106 WHIP. Was this the guy you were referring to?
It was
why
not.
he's on here. Okay, we'll get to the other guy. I think I know who it is then.
Yeah, I do think that he is kind of a must start in this situation. Yeah. This has all the makings of like a regression week. Like he has just pitched unreal since coming off the IL, but now he's going up against 2 pretty darn good offenses, and one of them at home. Like the one at or home versus Baltimore just like petrifies the hell out of me.
Like, for sure. But like, what are you gonna do? Not
you
start
can't
Lodolo
not
on a two-step?
Like, no, he's got a 2.12 ERA through 3 starts, and it's not like it's been all cake offenses that he's gone against. So like, I mean, he just he just went 5 against the Phillies. So like, yeah, I think you have to roll with it, but it doesn't feel good. It's one of those where like you look at it and you go, this could end really well or this could end really bad. But like I can't imagine
check in
scenario.
At the end of the week.
Yeah, I can't imagine the scenario where you're sitting Lodolo this week.
Yep. I mean, and that's where I'm at. You gotta, or else you shouldn't have signed up for the ride. And he has been great too, right? This isn't a situation where he's actually been struggling. Lodolo's been great, so you should have that confidence in sticking with your guy right now. Ryan Feltner, a guy I do like, and I really wish he was not a Rocky. But that rockiness is not part of his game this week at at Miami, at Pittsburgh. Obviously, we respect Pittsburgh. We're not running away from them necessarily, and we love a trip to Miami for a guy. Is this the time to pluck Feltner off the wire and slot him in? What do you think of Ryan Feltner on a 2-step?
Yeah, I think he's going to be one of the most added players in main event leagues this week.
Yeah,
because you get this 2 start, he's going to be widely available, and it's in 2 really good parks. Coming off of a whole week in Colorado and Mexico City, so
exactly.
Like you're gonna feel like a completely different world, much less kind of environment. So, yeah, I would love to start Feltner here. Feltner has looked really, really good when he has not been at home. The home has been the problem for him, though. I guess actually he gave up 6 earned runs at Philadelphia, so
yeah,
maybe not as
Philly's not easy.
No, but I mean Miami is one of the cakiest offenses in in the majors right now. So and like Pittsburgh is a team that like you're not necessarily scared of, but like sometimes they can come to play and sometimes they completely fall flat. So like I do think this is a pretty decent, especially 15 team leagues. I think this is a pretty decent 2-step. But even in 12s, like I could make the argument because the strikeout rate has been really, really good. And
I totally agree.
He usually pitches much better on the road. So I don't mind this one as a kind of a riskier 2-step in a 12.
Totally agree there with Ryan Feltner. And you talk about that start against Philly, and it didn't go very well, but it was a really bad first inning. 5 hits, 4 runs, and then settled down for the remaining 5+ after that. And I
still got 8 strikeouts.
Yeah, exactly. I really like that. It's 4 plus, by the way, not 5 plus. 4 plus innings after that, where he still gave up 2 runs, but like looked really good and had 7 of those 8 strikeouts. So I thought there were some good things to kind of go off of there once Feltner got through that bad first inning. I like him in 15s. I like him in 12s. 10s, you probably just don't need to. But if you are in a deeper 10 where you are kind of like, turning over every rock, this could be a rock I would look to, Ryan Feltner. Kenta Maeda has looked better at times. Like he spiked his velo up a little bit last time out. He gets St. Louis at home and a trip to the Yankees, coming off 5 scoreless against Tampa Bay. Did he do enough in that start? 0 walks, 0 homers. Obviously, if he's scoreless, there were 0 homers. But did he do enough there in 5 scoreless Kenta Maeda to encourage you to jump back on the train or jump on the train? I actually can't remember where you've been with him this year.
And yeah, I've been pretty much off the train.
Okay.
Lack of velo is concerning. I know the velo was up a little bit in the last start, so maybe, hey, that's a sign things are starting to get better.
Better than being down again.
Yeah, the problem is at New York. I don't know that I
Yes.
want to risk the at New York portion of this, especially when he's throwing 90. To me, I think it's pretty risky. And I know St. Louis hasn't played well, but there's still aspects of that offense that scare me. I understand it in 15s. I think in most 15s, you're probably rolling with it if you have Maeda. In 10s and 12s, I think he can do better. Like, I think I'd rather start Ryan Feltner. Like,
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
yeah.
And I think this is a scenario in your deeper leagues where if you have enough juice that you don't have to start Maeda, but you want to keep him, you can make that exception. Again, we
Yeah.
talk every week for those of you that are new. If you can't start somebody in a 2-step, you really need to investigate whether or not they need to be on your roster. If you still like Maeda and you want to kind of just see if he can really build the velo back up and kind of get back on track and you don't want to take this plunge, I totally get that. I don't think you have to cut him if you're not using him.
This is a longer list than we usually talk about on
Yes.
a 2-step. So, like, there's a lot of 2-steps that might be available in shallower formats.
Exactly. So you don't necessarily have to use this with Maeda, and you could still keep him if you want to see it through. I'm also terrified of that at New York. I've still got Maeda in one of my mains. I am not going to be starting him. Hunter Brown, I mean, he had the good start, immediately gave it back. He's at home twice, though, Cleveland and Seattle. I do think this is the litmus test one, though. If you're not starting him, I do think you have to cut him. So where are you at on Hunter Brown, Cleveland and Seattle at home? Are you starting him or are you cutting him?
Um, man, it's hard because, like, weirdly, Cleveland's offense has been great. Like,
Yeah.
the highest
kinda
run
carrying them right
differential.
now.
Yeah, highest run differential in baseball. I know I joked about it like after the first like 2 weeks, and it's somehow continued to stick around.
The
But I
pitching's
think
spotty right now for them. Like if they're gonna hold on, if Cleveland's gonna hold on as a firm contender here in this Central, I think the offense is going to have to be an instrumental piece of that.
absolutely. I mean, when you're missing, Bieber for the year, likely Gavin Williams for the year. I know they're saying, oh, it's
It's
just a
looking
setback,
bad,
but
yeah.
and then Tristan McKenzie's UCL is holding on by a thread at this point. Like, all of a sudden, like, this goes from an organization that needs pit or that relies on its pitching to it needs pitching quite a bit. So the offense
Exactly.
has got to stick around. Uh, I'm totally fine skipping this one for Hunter Brown. That being said, I think most people are going to ride with it, and I do kind of agree. Like, he needs to get those walks in check. I know that we usually talk about Hunter Brown having a home run problem, and like he has given up 3 home runs in 17 innings, but you have to kind of chalk up that freaking 2/3 of an inning start versus Kansas City and just kind of throw it out and not really care too much about it. It's just a really, 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 really bad start that I'm sure everybody wore. And
Yeah.
if you kind of look at the rest of the starts, the real issue hasn't been home runs; it's been walks. It's not being able to
Yes.
find the zone.
Do you
So
think that Hunter Brown is trying to address his home run issue and has lost his way in the process? Because his walk rate wasn't egregious last year. Solid 8%. That's league average, but he allowed too many homers. And maybe he's thinking, I gotta leave the zone a bit more. I gotta be a bit more fine with things. And his walk rate has ballooned up to 13%. and it hasn't even helped his homers. His 1.5 homer nine is exactly the same. So, do you think it's a process thing where he's been trying to fix the homers and lost his way completely, or he's just off to a rough start? What do you think on Hunter Brown with that?
So I don't know. Did you read Jason's article for RotoWire talking
Yes.
about like the difference? So I was reading that article and kind of like just flipping around like channels and stuff like that, and came across foul territory. And I can't remember who the starting pitcher it was for that was talking to AJ Brzezinski, and but he was saying the ball feels different.
Mm-hmm.
The ball it feels smaller. It feels slicker. Um,
The ball is
he's
whack right now, and
yeah,
Jason's article has highlighted like you're getting less impact on the
yeah.
well struck balls than normal. Like things that were barreled up and well hit, they're not delivering the same doubles, triples, homers as you would normally expect.
And I think this is going to affect certain guys. Like I think that, and I wonder if because when I've watched Hunter Brown pitch, it's one thing to look at the numbers, but actually watching him pitch,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't feel like he is purposely missing the zone. It feels like he is like you watch the glove move where the catcher sets up and then where the ball ends up, and I don't think he's intentionally like he's not Blake Snelling this where he's
Got you.
trying to go outside the zone and make people chase.
Yeah,
He's okay if he walks people in the process. This feels like he just cannot control or command anything right now. And
that's scary.
so yeah, I do not feel like this is like, oh, this is a purposeful thing that's backfired. I feel like this is a guy who cannot get a feel for this ball. And I don't know if he will at some point. I want to believe in the talent, but at the
So do
same
I.
time, I don't want the talent that's actually being seen on the field to like impact my numbers.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm pretty scared here with Brown. They both are at home, I guess helps to a degree. Most guys are better at home just in general. But, Cleveland, Seattle, capable. Neither super scary, even with as well as Cleveland's been playing. I'm not, running for the hills from them. And Seattle, hasn't been great, but they've got capable
Both
guys.
both of his home starts have been drastically better than his away starts. So in
You are right,
15's like
including Atlanta
yeah. So like and the
and
Yankees
Yankees. Yeah,
yeah, like
Atlanta.
they were
Okay, you know what? I think
I
I
think
think if
I'm
you got
rolling
him in
with him.
15s,
I think you're rolling with him in a 15. In
yeah,
a 12, my hat's off to you if you do it. I wouldn't, but I also don't have any shares of Hunter Brown. And I think in a 12, I already would have dropped him.
that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I was about to say. In a 12, I think I'm already out, so I don't really have to be worrying about this
Yeah.
with regards to whether or not I would be starting Hunter Brown. Okay, what about Daniel Lynch? He gets at Toronto and a home to Texas. That's that can be dicey too. Neither team is at their peak. Texas 13 and 13. Actually, both teams are 13 and 13 with sporadic outbursts by their offense, but they both have obviously strong premium type talent that can really sting you. And he's returning to the rotation. Are these his first two starts of the year? Oh shit, I didn't
Yeah.
even realize
Yeah.
that.
This
Okay,
is
well
a
that makes it
projection.
scary.
Yeah. And it's not like he even pitched well in AAA. So, like, I don't know. I wouldn't touch this one with a 10
I
foot
don't think
pole.
so.
I
No.
don't, yeah. Yeah, you couldn't pay me to put him. I mean, if you wanted to pay my main event buy-in, then yeah, I would put him in my lineup for the week and then
We can
hope to
revisit
recover. But
him down the line
yeah,
because yeah, we're not doing this. I didn't realize it was his first two starts of the year.
6.46 ERA in AAA this year.
I can't do that. His first two starts of the year. Griffin Canning at home to Philly and at Cleveland. He's a guy I can't quit. Loved him coming into the year. There's been flashes, but there's also been real negative situations. That's how you end up with a 7.50 ERA and a 1.54 WHIP. It's been more bad than good, or at least the bad has outweighed the good. Because yeah, you look at it, it's like his last two starts haven't been too bad. There was the nightmare at Boston, the pretty bad start home to Boston. So he faced Boston. Oh yeah, he's another one like Detmers, all AL East,
Yeah,
Baltimore and Boston twice, and a Tampa start. So I mean, he keeps getting brutalized by this difficult division. Philly and at Cleveland though doesn't really let up. In a 15, I think I can still get there because I'm such a sucker for him.
You
but I
shouldn't. You shouldn't
probably
get there.
shouldn't. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
no.
agree.
Like,
I already cut him, by the way. I say I'm such a sucker for him, but I did cut Canning in a main event. So you're out on this even in deep leagues?
yeah, I mean, you're talking about Philadelphia, who's got a really, really strong offense, and then, like we said, Cleveland, shockingly, is the best run differential in baseball. So this does not
Homers
line
too
up.
for Philly, which is
Yeah,
his Canning's biggest issue.
yeah. So no, I'm not playing with this one.
Okie dokie.
I mean, I guess in a 15 you may not have other options, but
I might go for like a hot reliever, like a Reed Garrett or something over this. Like I don't know if I want to get bludgeoned 2 more times with Griffin Canning.
maybe
He's
go after
somebody
Trevor McGill, who got the save last night,
he did on
and
my
now it
bench.
seems like it could be
No,
unopened.
it isn't that a
Payamps wasn't on a back to back or anything like that.
okay, you
He,
answered my question before I could ask
Payamps
it.
pitched the eighth.
So they're just screwing with us then.
Yeah, you know what they're doing? They're doing exactly what a baseball team should be, but
Of
fantasy
course.
players hate. They're
And we've
they're optimizing their matchups.
yep,
They're putting the right guys in the right position. But we hate that from a fantasy perspective.
we've
But
talked
that's
about this
what they should
before.
do.
Heart versus head. My
Yeah,
baseball head loves it. My fantasy heart freaking hates it. It
yeah.
says, "Give me
If it
my
was my
saves."
team, if I was a Brewers fan, I would go, yeah, okay.
I'm fine with this.
I'm glad you guys are, being smart. As a fantasy manager, I go, I fucking hate you guys.
It's how I run my OOTP teams, and I always make jokes that
Yeah.
I say like the fantasy dweebs would hate me
Hmm.
because we got 7 guys with at least 7 saves by the end
Yeah.
of the year and some crap, and it's because we're just running the best matchup. So again, yeah, I do get it, but it does make it difficult to kind of dive in for the fantasy purposes. Moving on from Griffin Canning to James Paxton at Arizona, home to Atlanta. That home to Atlanta is lurking. But if you're chasing dubs, obviously you can't get much better team. He is walking everybody right now. Does that scare you enough to mitigate this 261 ERA from James Paxton? Comes with a 155 whip because of the 17 walks. Where you at on him, dude? James Paxton has been wild this year, pun intended.
Yeah, he's got a negative K to walk percentage.
By like a decent amount, no?
6.7%, negative
That's
6.7%.
crazy, dude.
Like he is striking guys out at a 12.5% clip and walking guys at a 19% clip.
Jesus.
I'm gonna I know that some people are gonna say, oh, you got to do it. He pitches for the Dodgers. I'm gonna argue you don't have to do it because the damage he may do to your whip could be irreversible. And he
True.
didn't even go 5. And when you're when you're walking this many guys, that means you're throwing a ton more pitches. You may
That's the
not go deep
problem.
enough to win. So, especially with Atlanta on the docket, there's no way I'm doing this. I'm not doing it.
I'm not as strident on no way, but I think you make a good case on not starting James Paxton. Like he can really sting you, and you
Give me
need
Ryan Feltner. I'll
I
take
do
Ryan
agree with
Feltner.
that. I
Yeah.
do agree with that, even though the win potential might not be
I think
as
I
high.
think I would rather have Dean Kramer.
Dean Kramer again, New York and at Cincy. Oh, okay. That's saying something. Well, yeah, because you still got pretty high win probability.
Yeah.
You got a guy who has a better chance to get through 5
Give me
consistently.
Hunter Brown.
You know what? I think I agree with all those. I like Paxton. I've been rooting for him, but we got to be smart here. Things do not look good. When you're walking this many, it is a problem.
They've
I'm with you.
they've only let him see 23 batters at max.
And why would they let him see more with the way he's
Yeah.
pitching?
Yeah. And I can't imagine, especially against Atlanta. And it's not even like the front half of that series is great either. It's in a better park. But Arizona's not a team that I think Paxton can dominate.
No, it's not a team I want to pick on. Again,
Yeah.
They're not hitting the lights out of the ball, but they're not terrible either. And they've got guys that can pop off. So no, I think you make the right case here that Paxton, let's get away from the name value. Let's get away from the team value and be smart here and not overly do it. I agree with you on Kramer, Feltner, and Brown. I think they all need to be ahead of James Paxton. Trevor Rogers, Washington at Oakland. I mean, it's a beautiful, beautiful setup, which makes me think that this is a slam dunk. I'm mostly talking 10s here because I think in 12s and 15s, it's easy. 4.10 ERA, 152 whip, though, so far for Trevor Rogers. He has given up a decent number of hits. Are these two teams enticing enough to go for Trevor Rogers in all formats?
I think this is one of those scenarios where if you can't use Trevor Rogers here, why is he on your roster?
That
Like,
100%. Washington and that Oakland, how do you, outside of maybe switching Washington for the White Sox, it's the only way that could be better.
yeah, like I mean, this is the easiest or one of the easiest two steps you're ever going to see.
Agreed.
So yeah, I mean, if I had Trevor, I do have Trevor Rogers in some leagues. Like he's going straight in my lineup this week.
Yeah.
Like I don't care.
Okay, so we're slam dunking him.
Yeah, I'm just looking up. Washington has actually been surprisingly decent this year.
And
Uh,
against lefties specifically, I believe. But even
well, that's what I
still,
was just looking up. They've got the third lowest OPS
okay,
versus left-hand pitching.
maybe
So
it's righties that they're doing better against that. Because
yeah,
they have been a little spry, but I guess
in
it's
last year
versus
they were much better against lefties, but it's
Got
a
it.
much different looking team this year. So yeah, no, I think you have to start Trevor Rogers here.
7th versus righties for Washington. So yeah, this is
Yeah,
basically the exact matchup
and
that you want with Trevor
Oakland
Rogers.
is 23rd versus lefties this year. So
All in.
yeah.
Bryce Wilson out in Milwaukee. I don't know if these are going to be opens or traditional starts or anything. I just brought him on just in case you had any deep league interest. He did go 4 1/3 in a traditional start last time out. It wasn't great. 6 base runners, 2 runs. But is Bryce Wilson doing anything for you with the Rays and the Cubs?
No, I mean they even said like he is pretty much an opener. So
Yeah.
I don't care.
Okay. I figured not. I'm not even sure I would really get into it though, even if he had an opener and he
Yeah.
was the follower. Obviously, that would help your win potential, but that's basically it. Luis Severino actually flips Bryce Wilson's matchups. Obviously, they're on different teams, and Wilson is home to Tampa Bay and at the Cubs. Severino's home to the Cubs at Tampa Bay. Where are we at on Severino right now? Let's do a little check in on him. You know, he's had some good outings. He has a sparkling ERA, but it's a 2.67 ERA that comes with a 1.26 WHIP, which is running a little hot for such a good ERA. Is the ERA going to regress? Is it going to regress poorly? Do we like Cubs Rays for Luis Severino?
I mean, it's going to regress for sure, but I don't know that it's going to regress a ton. I
Yeah,
mean, the reason why there's such a big disparity in the kind of WHIP and ERA is because he's kind of filling up the zone and trying to induce weak contact. He's not being the strikeout guy we kind of known Luis Severino for. So,
hmm
uh, and maybe this is just a product of hey, like I'm a different pitcher than I was, 3 or 4 years ago, and I've got this park that helps me, and I've got a decent defense behind me, so I'm just going to kind of try to get out of innings quickly. It's working fairly well so far. Like he's
yeah.
still striking out guys at a decent rate, but not like a prodigious rate, and he's getting out of innings quickly. So yeah, I think I am starting him here in most formats.
Me too.
I love the home park. I'm not, especially with Cody Bellinger going down, I'm not super afraid
Mm,
of Chicago. Tampa Bay is a team that can get you, but they kind of dink and dunk you. So I'm not like super worried like he's gonna have a blow up start or anything like that. So I'm
58% ground ball rate. Oh, sorry, I thought you were done there. 58% ground ball rate for Luis Severino. Huge spike. I'm with you. I think he's 12s and 15s, yes, and considerable in 10s for
yeah.
Severino.
I think this is a purposeful change on his part. I think he's looking at Lindor behind him and he goes, I'm gonna let this kind of defensive wizard, kind of clean up things for me.
I like it. And I like Severino too, so I'm rooting for him.
Mhm.
Hope he does well here. Clark Schmidt opens the week at Baltimore, but then gets Detroit afterwards. So you're kind of hoping to survive Baltimore and then feast on Detroit if you're running Clark Schmidt out there. I like Clark Schmidt. He's a guy that 355 ERA, 146 WHIP. That's a pretty hot on the whip there. That's kind of part of his game, unfortunately. He can allow hits at times, and the walk rate has spiked back up after last year's 7%. But a 27% K rate, some good swing and miss to go with it. I think I'm doing this in 15s and 12s, and then even considering it in 10s, depending on what's available. I like Clark Schmidt here at Baltimore, home to Detroit. What about you?
Yeah, he's kind of trying to do the Robbie Ray thing a little bit, where he's filling up the zone a little bit more. He's raised his own percentage by 2%. He's attacking hitters and going, hey, listen, you may make contact, but I don't know that you can take me deep. Um, it's, worked fairly well for the most part. So I'm intrigued by Schmidt here. I'm a little bit scared of that Baltimore start, but at least it's
Sure.
in Baltimore where it is harder to hit home runs. So I think I'm rolling with this in 15s. I think in 12s you could probably find a little bit better option, but in a 15, I think I'm rolling with this.
Yeah, it's a solid setup here for Schmidt with the Detroit start on the weekend. So here's hoping that he can kind of survive Baltimore. I do like Clark Schmidt, and there is win potential there too, of course, with the Yankees helping him out. My boy Christopher Sanchez goes to the Angels and then hosts the Giants. He's coming off a tough one where he only lasted 3 innings, 5 runs, only one of them earned, which was nice, but 3 walks was part of what like built up his pitch count there, 74 pitches through 3 innings. So they got him out of there. And again, it did minimal damage to your ERA because it was 4 unearned runs, but it wasn't a good start in Cincy for Christopher Sanchez. He's allowed to catch a bad one. It only boosted his ERA to 296, but he has a 148 whip. Another guy here, like we've had several guys where they have like good ERAs, but ugly whips that say those ERAs are going to rise if they don't get that in check. The control's been the problem. 10% walk rate. I mentioned the 3 walks in Cincinnati for Christopher Sanchez. Also a 352 BABIP. So the walks and hits are conspiring for him right now. Are you sticking with Christopher Sanchez at the Angels home to the Giants?
Yeah, this is the one where I said he's a must start. Like I
Okay, just
just,
making sure.
yeah, I don't know. Like especially with these matchups, like my San Francisco Giants are not good offensively. They've got
And
pieces, and you know what? Someone did call me out on Jung Ho Lee, saying like, I was too worried on him at the start of the season, and that he's showing like, and he is absolutely showing that he is a major league hitter, and that the
mhm.
Giants may not regret that contract. So I will take my L on Jung. Will happily take my L
Those are
on
fun
Jung Ho
L's,
Lee.
right? Yeah, because it means
Yeah,
your team is
yeah,
benefiting.
I want him to be good. I want him to be a Hall of Famer, to be quite
Yeah,
honest. Like
you're happy to be wrong on that one.
so I will totally take my L there. But like this is not an offense that you're worried about.
No.
So and I mean, yeah, like he is walking a few more guys. You don't love to see that. You know what he's not doing? He's not letting the ball get in the air. He's got like a 66% ground ball rate, which is
And I think
insanely good.
I think the spike in walks and hits for Christopher Sanchez is part of a concerted effort
Yep.
to keep the ball down and in the park because home
Yep.
runs were his issue. 1.5 homer 9 last year, 0 homers so far this year.
Yep.
Obviously, that will go up, but I
He's got
love what he's doing.
he's going, listen, I don't mind letting you on base because the guys behind me are going to get a double play here because I'm going to put the ball
Yep.
on the ground and Trey Turner's going to turn too. So
And I like that foundation that he's laying. He
I,
still has to work out some kinks. We can't have a 148 ERA or whip all year for Christopher Sanchez, but there are a lot of things I like. I agree with you.
I
I'm
like that
I'm
it's
I'm
not
starting
coming at
him.
the cost of strikeouts, right? Like he's
Exactly,
not like
26%.
all of a sudden he's not like 21% guy. He's like I'm still getting the strikeouts, but I'm also not giving up any home runs, and I'll take
Yeah,
that.
there's a lot to like there.
Yeah.
Is Bailey Falter doing anything for you with at Oakland and hosting Colorado? I mean, the matchups are nice. I think Falter actually has been running a decent ERA so far this year. The skills are modest, 11% strikeout minus walk, 17% K rate, but it is a 3.33 ERA and an 0.89 whip. Are you taking a deep league shot here on Bailey Falter at Oakland home to the Rockies?
I think I am.
I think there's viability. Why not?
Yeah, you win seeking, right? And when you're win seeking, why not go to Pittsburgh?
Yes, that's what we
But like
always think.
is there like again like these are two of the easiest matchups in baseball, the Rockies on the
Hmm.
road and the Oakland A's. So like I mean I think this is one of those, so
This
he'll
is
be like,
streaming in a nutshell, isn't it?
yes, exactly. I mean what you want to do when when I was we were at First Pitch Arizona a few years ago, and I got put on the streaming pitchers uh panel with Derek Carty and Michael Simeone, two guys who are smarter than me. And when like we all kind of displayed our data in terms of like what we look for in streaming starting pitchers, and it's matchup is like the biggest thing.
Absolutely.
So like unless you have a truly awful pitcher, like when you get a two start versus Oakland and the Rockies away from Coors, I think you have to kind of take it. So yeah, I think I'm taking Bailey Falter here.
Yep, I think he is definitely on the 15 radar, maybe even on the 12 radar, depending what your league looks like, how deep it is, and everything. But there's a lot to like here um, with Bailey Falter, which I didn't expect to be saying at any point this year, let alone this early. So let's see what happens this week and
It
take the
could all
shot
go
against.
really, really poorly, but I
It
think
it
like
certainly could, but I think you got to take these shots here. Like
mhm,
again, this is streaming in a nutshell. This is what you're looking for. Cushy matchups with capable
yeah,
arms, and because Pittsburgh has been, much better this year, like they you can actually kind of bank on them to hopefully get at least one win. I mean, they're 13 and
you
13, right?
should get
So,
two. Yeah.
yeah, ideally you get two, but let's not be greedy. If we get one win, good ratios, we take that.
Hmm.
What about Matt Waldron, the knuckleballer, gets Cincy at home and then a trip to Arizona? Of course, because baseball is as stupid as she likes to be. After getting his clock cleaned, he goes to Colorado and dominates, right? Like that is just the most baseball. That's the most knuckleball thing,
I
especially.
I was trying to like figure out like when he was going to Colorado because like breaking pitches don't break.
Yeah,
But what about a knuckleball? Like,
I
what does that
wonder.
do in the thin air? And I never came to a conclusion before it, but like I was really tempted to use him in DFS just to see because I figured no one would be on him.
I think
And
you'd have been right.
I wish I had because I think that would have been like he was dirt cheap. He was like $5,000
Just
on
run an alt
DraftKings.
lineup on that next time. And he
Yeah.
also did pretty well against the Dodgers to start before that. Toronto whooped
Hmm.
him, and St. Louis whooped him in his opener. But he's had three good starts outside of that. And then you're talking about Cincy at home. Cincy can do damage anywhere, and a trip to Arizona. It's not the cushiest matchup, but it's also not terrifying.
I'm not doing it because I
Just the
don't.
volatility of the knuckleball.
Yeah, like I think he is really like a 15 team streamer
Yeah,
kind of guy, and you're looking for good matchups. And I know you're not getting Cincinnati in Cincinnati, but they can still bat you around.
they
Don't
can
care
get you
where you
anywhere.
are.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna do it, but like this, it's just he's so fun to watch. I love knuckleballers. Like they're
Yeah, I
just
want Matt Waldron to succeed
yeah.
because
I
knuckleballers are
have him in a
fun.
couple of 15s, including my main event.
Oh,
So
okay.
like I do like Matt Waldron a lot. I'm not messing with these matchups.
I'm not either. I don't really mess with knuckleballers in fantasy. I like and root for them for the novelty of it, but not for fantasy. Steven Matz has a pretty cushy matchup. That's why I put him on here at Detroit, home to the White Sox. Is it enough to get you back on board? This has been a guy that you've been a fan of over the years. Where you been at? I think he's coming off a tough outing.
Yeah, he got murdered. Like legitimately destroyed one of my league's ratios. Like just himself.
Jeez.
Like
Yeah, Arizona cleaned his clock. Oakland cleaned him
yeah,
up.
it
5 innings, five runs
it
too.
was at Oakland, and then he had Arizona, and like he went from like, hey, like Steven Matz is here, Steven Matz is doing something, to all of a sudden, oh no, Steven Matz, what have you done to me?
You
So
bludgeoned me. So where are you at though? Because this is White Sox Detroit or
I
Detroit
think
then
you
White
got to
Sox.
use it. I
I think
think
so
like
too in deeper leagues.
even in 12s, like these are amazing matchups. I know he looked bad in the last two starts, but I mean, prior to that, he was looking pretty good. So um, I'm rolling with it here, even in 12s.
This is another streaming in a nutshell. This is what you're
Yeah.
doing. You're seeking out good
If
matchups, two
if you can't
starts.
use him here, I guess this is one of those situations. You can't use Steven Matz here. He
Oh,
shouldn't be
for
on your
sure.
roster.
For
So
sure.
I think for sure you're using him.
Yeah, I think you got to go for it. Pick him up off the wire. And like you said, if he's already on your roster, you gotta run Steven
Yeah.
Matz. Ryan Pepio goes to Milwaukee and hosts the Mets. He's another one that maybe I didn't have to put on here, but it's maybe worth a check in just to kind of see where we're at with him. If we're still liking what we're getting out of Pepio, he was somebody I was really into coming into the season. 3.77 ERA, 0.98 WHIP. Can't argue with any of that, but the skills haven't been, you know, off the charts, right? It's a what is it, a 19% strikeout minus walk, which is pretty good. But the home runs are still up there at 1.3. That's kind of the one problem with him. So like you can't be upset about where you're at with Ryan Pepio. I think he's an easy start in 15s and 12s. In 10s, is Pepio somebody who's consistently in your lineup?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, good.
I know the walk rate is a bit concerning. I'm not super worried about it. He is attacking the zone a fair amount, and I think he's gotten squeezed in a couple of these outings. So, the one thing that has been consistent this year is how bad MLB officiating has been.
Oh my goodness, dude!
Like,
Is it
please
recency
get
bias or is it
no. This
bad?
is
I
really, really
agree.
bad.
It really does feel because I always try to think like, okay, same with like the injuries. Is it just recency bias or is it exceptionally bad? And it feels exceptionally bad. Speaking of, by the way, did you see Joe Adele get called out on that caught stealing to end the game versus Baltimore?
Yeah,
They
I
reviewed
just
it. It seemed clear as day that he was safe, and they're like, "Nah, game over. We got
yeah.
a lunch or dinner reservation or something." It's garbage. So yeah, Pepio walk rate has spiked. That's probably been the biggest issue relative to last year. But I'm still looking at the 19% strikeout minus walk. I
Yeah.
love him. I'm running him in tens consistently. Again,
So
this isn't about 10s, 15s, and 12s. He's an automatic there, but in tens, I think I'm pretty close to automatic with Pepio as well.
it's a 14% swinging strike rate and a 76% zone contact rate. I mean, those are fantastic numbers.
It's nasty.
I'm here for him right now. Yeah.
Okay, good. John Gray goes hosts Washington and then goes to KC, which again we know that we've been saying we respect them. We know that they can get you. You got to be careful, but we do like the Washington. Again, though, they're seventh in WOBA against righties. It was the verse lefties where they're not doing well. So this is actually a sneaky decent matchup. That if you are judging off the name value of the teams, Nationals, Royals, you might think, oh, this is cushy. Not quite, because the Royals are outright good this year, 16 and 10, and the Nats only 10 and 14, but they do work against righties. Is John Gray's? Did I lose you?
Yeah. Sorry, I lost you for a
Oh,
second
there you
there.
go.
I,
Did you hear me about John Gray?
yes, I did. I don't know who John Gray is. Like
I
I
don't either, man.
like you look at like the game logs and like his last outing, 4 2/3. He only had one walk, only gave up one earned run, 7 strikeouts, but 7 hits given up.
Yeah,
You look at other outings where he's walked three in 6 innings or 3 2/3, and like I don't know who John Gray is, and that scares the crap out of me. I think you probably are using it just so you can get the front end of that Washington series, but Washington has been better against right-handed pitching. So
yeah.
I totally understand in 10s and 12s kind of skipping this one. I don't know that many people are going to when he's got a 2.92 ERA.
True.
Um, but in 15s, I think you're probably just rolling with them. 10s and 12s, like honestly, in a 10, I probably wouldn't start him. I'd go to a different option because I just don't trust John Gray. Uh, but I think most people are going to roll with him just because the RA is so low.
Yeah, I think I agree with all that. Like I'm definitely running them in 15s because again, the
Yeah.
options just aren't going to be that rich that you can avoid starting someone like John Gray. 12s, it's a lot more borderline, and I think that I'm probably looking for a way in a 10 to not do it. I mean, he might not even be rostered in most tens, so you'd have to pick him up anyway. And maybe you just skip out on this John Gray one,
Yeah.
kind of let him settle a little bit more. It is a 146 whip to go with the 292 ERA.
Mm-hmm.
So he has been kind of goofy, like you're saying. I love John Gray. I want him to be good, but we're not going to wish cast and just start him everywhere. Let's do it in 15s. Let's be coin tossy in 12s and then pass in 10s on John Gray. And then the last one is Swervin' Jake Irvin, who goes to Miami, which is the main reason that I ended up listening here, and then hosts Toronto. The Dodgers whooped him. Now, he faced the Dodgers twice in a row. He dropped 6 scoreless in LA, comes home to face them, and they got him. 12 hits,
Yeah.
6 runs. So, one up, one down. That's just kind of the way it goes. You get the Dodgers twice. The schedule gods are not blessing you there. The fact that he even had one gem against them, I would consider a win for Jake Irvin. It's just unfortunate that the 6 earned unravels it. But if you started Jake Irvin twice against the Dodgers, that's kind of your own fault. I'm sorry,
Yeah, absolutely.
right?
Here's the thing. You know what happened to most people is they did not
Yeah.
start him for that first start, and then they got wrecked for that second start.
But you have to know. I
Yeah.
mean, it's easy to say now with the benefit of hindsight. But if I see he had done that, right? Because maybe you picked him up because you started him at Oakland. Okay. 1 hit against Oakland, great. Then you bench him at LA, Jake Irvin, and he goes 6 scoreless. When you see LA again on the list, I think you have to sit that. Don't you just think that the
I mean,
comeuppance is going to get him?
I wouldn't have started him for either. I would have just said no. I'm not doing this
No,
either.
I
But
would have started him for the at Oakland, and that's
I
it.
and to like my point, like backing up, like what I just said, like I have a DC team in which like every single one of my pitchers is injured
Is
except
dead.
for Jake Irvin, and I took a 0 both times versus
That's
the
the move.
Dodgers. Like
Yeah,
and I hate taking zeros.
because the 6 cancels out the 0 pretty
Oh
easy. In
yeah,
fact,
absolutely.
the 6 and 4 2/3 cancels out the Oakland and LA starts, to be honest. Because
Hmm.
now all of a sudden you're looking at, what is that, 16 and 2/3?
Hmm.
Let's see. It's a 3.77 ERA. Okay,
Yeah,
if you
fine.
add all 3 starts together, that's actually, so it doesn't quite cancel out both, but it obviously cancels out the other Dodgers start. So, but at Miami and home to Toronto is a little bit more appealing if you are a Jake Irvin guy. You have him on a roster, so you don't completely hate him. Do you think you can find a way to start Jake Irvin in deep leagues this week? Is there anything there?
I don't think so. And for me, it is a product of just his pitch mix. Like he just throws fastballs. Like, and I just think that
What a
even a
nerve.
team, yeah, I think even a team like Miami is just gonna hunt those. And then Toronto scares me against that's a team that can hit fastballs. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not rolling with Jake Irvin this week. Like I understand Miami looks like a pretty good start, and it could be. And maybe you just some people are gonna in 15s are gonna roll with him just based on that Miami front half. But I think it's a mistake. I don't think Jake Irvin is a good pitcher.
Yeah, I mean, I think he can be. I think he's like a capable major league pitcher, but that's different than a
Sure.
capable fantasy pitcher. And so I'm with you there. Let's be careful with Jake Irvin out there.
Like he
Um,
does like I like he was one of the more picked up guys, including someone who dropped like $150 on him in a main event.
oh,
Um After that first Dodgers start. Uh but like I don't get it, to be quite honest. Like it's great to see someone go out and like shut down the Dodgers for 6 innings, but these are major league pitchers. Like they've got amazing talent just to get to the majors, right? Like
yeah,
any pitcher can
absolutely.
be successful at any time against any team. But like, what is in the profile that you like? It's a bad ERA, it's a bad whip, it's a bad team. He's a guy who doesn't get a lot of strikeouts. Like you're literally looking for
You're really
0 of the
selling
4
him.
categories. Yeah, like there's nothing in Jake Irvin that says, oh, this guy. Like the reason he's on my DC teams is like I was in like round like 48, 49 going, hey, who's a guy who might get innings this year? Like
Hmm.
he's right there next to Patrick Corbin. Like I
Yeah.
don't want to use these guys, but in draft champions, when you're going 50 rounds at the end and you need innings, like those are the guys that are going to get innings.
No, I totally get it, and I'm not starting Jake Irvin here. I do want to talk about his teammate Mackenzie Gore because the Miami start for Irvin is part of a wraparound series, so Gore doesn't get the same matchups. He gets at Texas, home to Toronto, on Tuesday and Sunday of next week, and he's been doing some good things, and I know that you've been a fan of his previously. He's coming off a gem against the Dodgers, 6 innings, 1 run on 7 hits, 2 walks, 4 Ks, and he's looked pretty good this year. Hasn't allowed more than 3 in any starts. His one kind of bad start was the 4 innings, 3 runs against Houston, and even that, you're surviving. That's not the end of the world. What do you think about at Texas and home to Toronto for Mackenzie Gore? Is that a shallow league start for you? It's an easy start in 15s, I think, but what about the shallower formats?
I think I'm starting him with the way he's been pitching. This just frustrates me, man. Like just another
You
one of these
jumped off
guys
too
this
early.
year that I just jumped off. Like, and it's a bunch of nationals, like CJ Abrams and
Yeah.
Luis Garcia Jr.
Yeah,
and
it's three
Mackenzie
Nats.
Gore.
Three
Like
Nats that you've been a big fan of. That's
it
crazy.
just irks me. But that being said, like, yeah, I think I'm rolling with him until he like shows he isn't trustable again. Uh, and because I mean, he's not like walking the yard anymore. Like all of a sudden,
Mm-hmm.
like his walks have dropped once again. For the now third straight season down to 7.5%. Like he's always had good stuff. He just hasn't been able to control it. And now he's controlling it, and commanding it, which is even more important. So because he's not giving up home runs. So 0.69 homer per nine is pretty nice.
Nice. We like that. Yeah. So Mackenzie Gore, definitely in on that. At Texas, home to Toronto. I like that in 12s. Depending on what's available in 10s, I would even consider it. I think it's at least on the board to take a look at. We could be in the midst of the early foundation of a breakout here for Mackenzie Gore, and just in time to not be on any of Justin's teams after you rostered him religiously over the previous couple seasons.
And I even said, like, in draft season, I'm like, why are people, like, because people kept drafting Mackenzie Gore. Like, it'd be in auctions and there'd be a bidding war on Mackenzie Gore.
These morons, dude.
I'm like, what are they doing? Have they not, like, seen what Mackenzie Gore does to people? And, like, obviously he could still regress, and this could just be like a hot start of the season, like Jason's article says, like ball velocity is down on barrels, and it's harder to hit in April than it is in any other month. But man, it just irks me. It just freaking irks me. Like this was my dude for years.
It's fair to be frustrated off of that.
You go through it all the time. So
yeah, the year early thing kills me, and it's hard to know how long to stay committed to a player. Like, do I keep going to the well here, or am I getting foolish by sticking with the guy? And that is one of the benefits of playing a lot of leagues, is that you kind of have, your portfolio, quote unquote. And so you can kind of stick with some guys too. That is one thing I do like about it, is it allows me to kind of stay bought in on some guys when there are times when I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to give up on this guy, but I don't want to put him on every team. So here's a little DC that I can put him on, so I'm still kind of bought in, and just in case he pops. So Mackenzie Gore, we'll see if he's having the full breakout.
And we don't remember the ones that, like, we gave up on, and it was right to give up.
Correct.
On. Like it's kind of like, for those of you who play poker, like, you remember, like, all your really bad folds, but you don't remember your good folds.
No. Not at all. You're 100% right on that.
But like, those bad ones stick with you forever.
They are pretty killer.
I know there's plenty of guys that I finally said, you know what, I'm done with you, and then it was the right decision. But no, I remember the ones that I say, I'm done with you, they go out and, like, ball, or I stick with them and they just
melt down again. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a good point. Like those flushes that you fold, and then it comes through and you're like, I should have stayed. And it's like, you never judge your poker decisions based on what the cards ended up being. You got to go over the full odds.
Yeah.
Anyway, 2 steps, some pretty interesting stuff out there. A lot of opportunities, I think, across the various formats to do some big things this week. Of course, there's always risk when you're picking up guys, so be careful out there in those streets. But Justin, I know you probably have to get started on your fab in like 10 minutes to be done in time for Sunday night, but I hope you have a great weekend. Are you and Jason getting together?
I believe we are. Actually, I know we are, because we also have a guest this weekend.
Ooh, do you want to share that now, or keep that under wraps?
I believe he was nominated for Baseball Article or Baseball Writer of the Year, Blake Meyer.
We like to hear that.
So got to meet him in Tout Wars, and so I'm gonna try to start bringing on guests. So if you have suggestions for guests, especially people we have never had on before, so on Sundays I'm gonna try to book guests here for at least the next few weeks. So
Ellen Adair,
we need Ellen on. So I'll have to reach out to her. Yeah, I'd love having
come on for that one. Anyway,
Ellen.
Great talking with you. You guys have a good time on Sunday. We'll be back on Monday, setting up the week. Good luck with Fab and everything, and I'll talk to you later.
Take it easy.